Hello everyone, this is Ponder on Weather. In this update, we've got possible power outages as the heat really starts to intensify. Plus, we have yet another hurricane in the Pacific, and we possibly have another system trying to form in the Gulf of Mexico as we'll walk you through the next 2 weeks. Good morning, everyone. How's it going out there? Hoping everyone had a fabulous weekend. I want to give you a heads up. My big family vacation is coming up, and I'll be going on vacation on my longest trip and as we've done in our lifetime, 15 days heading up into the Pacific Northwest. So this will be my last video for a while. So I kind of wanted to walk you through the next 2 weeks. So let's just kind of delve into the details this morning. So yeah, the action today is we've got a dominating ridge of high pressure where they've had just a ton of sinking air. Numerous records broke out yesterday in Texas. They're going to be feeling the effects today as the winds actually go calm in Texas with widespread heat advisories and excessive heat warnings. That energy alone just on wind is going to be less than 10%. So the power grid is going to be at its max today, and they are having possible brownouts from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. in Texas. So definitely be on high alert as the grid is going to be maxed out later on this afternoon. But just to the north of that boundary, that's where all the instability is, and that's where we're going to have some of that severe weather starting to take shape for today. Plus, we'll be watching this area down here from Louisiana to the coast, the panhandle of Florida, for a possible tropical system trying to form in the Gulf of Mexico. But yeah, today we've got widespread heat advisories and excessive heat warnings. They've seen a ton of this in Texas. It's been bone dry, and that's where we're going to be maxing out on the grid today. So unfortunately, it's a dangerous day in Texas with all that heat, especially with the possible brownouts that could be unfolding later on this afternoon. So as we walk you through, just to the north of there, we're going to have that severe threat right along that boundary into portions of just north into portions of Kansas, going into Missouri here, but especially as you get into central Illinois, central Indiana, all the way up to Detroit. So essentially from Chicago to Detroit, you're going to have some of that severe weather with those damaging winds and some of that isolated hail activity. But just to the south, here's another front that's just literally going to be just kind of oozing further south. So they're going to have multiple fronts actually. This front, well, they have this where they call diurnal heating. So they'll have pop-up thunderstorms in the heat of the afternoon and they'll die out. So the combination of this front along with this other front is going to be diving south over the next several days. And eventually over time, there's a low pressure system that's looking to try to form just off the coast of Louisiana. That's why the National Hurricane Center actually has about a 30% chance of this trying to form in some sort of tropical entity by late week, say about Thursday, Friday timeframe. So but let's take you through tomorrow. So as we go into tomorrow, we'll have that first boundary right along into portions of New Orleans to Mobile to places into the panhandle of Florida. Well, they'll have that some of that diurnal heating shower activity and thunderstorms in the heat of the afternoon. Along ahead of that, we'll have another instability in portions of the Northeast. So those storms actually could be pretty bumpy into portions of Pennsylvania and upstate New York as we get again into the late afternoon time frame, into the early evening as well. But just back behind it, once that front moves through, we've got severe clear skies and a high pressure really sinking in with that sinking air. So it definitely clears out in a good chunk of the middle part of the country after this little cool front moves through. But after we go into, say, midweek, right? So midweek, things start to get somewhat interesting down here into the Gulf of Mexico. That first front will be kind of washing itself out. So anytime you have like a lingering front in the Gulf of Mexico, especially with these waters, 90 degrees this time of year, it don't take much, right? So this one's going to be basically hugging the coast, but it's going to be a compounding effect all week long with these diurnal heating thunderstorms, especially along the coast, will be adding up over time. And then once this front moves through, this will be just north of Dallas. That'll That'll set the stage for more compressional heating in places into the Texas again, where you'll rapidly warm up ahead of that front. You may kick off about a 15% chance of shower activity, stay in the Dallas area, but really not expecting much. Everything's going to be basically east of you, and especially long into the southeast. But we'll be watching this front here as this continues to dive further south, as it will get into the Gulf of Mexico. But out in the Pacific, it's been really impressive this year. So we've had 5 systems. Yes, we're already up to D. That's only 4, right? But remember, we had Bonnie that crossed over from the Atlantic into the Pacific side, and all 5 storms have actually formed into a hurricane on the Pacific side. So now Hurricane Darby, it's small. It's really small, but it's compact, and it's really packing a punch. I mean, look at this. This is actually the most impressive storm we've seen so far this season. This rapidly intensified. Now it's actually a major hurricane out there into the open waters of the Pacific. That's the good thing, is it's really pretty to look at, but it's not going to affect any landmass whatsoever. So that's kind of how you want these things. You know, if they are big and bad like this, not going to be infecting any landmass whatsoever. But man, that's been on an incredible run in the Pacific with 5 storms already, and all of them have been hurricanes. So, but yes, as we go into Thursday, right? So as we go into Thursday with a combination of that meandering front right now, plus that secondary front, there's going to be a little low pressure system trying to form somewhere around New Orleans, say Mobile area, could be possibly into Pensacola. It's going to be hugging the coast, right? But it's going to be a compounding effect as the setup on Thursday, with heavier rain starting to fill in that area. And so by the time we get into Friday, here's the latest European guidance. It actually has got a little low pressure system. It's, again, right along the coast. There's a Gulfport. Here's back basically into Mobile, back into Pensacola. Right now, it's guesstimated about 37 miles an hour. Winds, gust around, Friday afternoon time frame, just near Pensacola, back into Destin area. So, yeah, it's questionable if this is actually going to be able to form into a tropical entity or not. But again, it doesn't matter with these storms. It's right along the coast. It could be a no-name storm and dump tremendous amount of rain, or storm or not. It will be a heavy rainmaker. If it does actually form into a tropical storm, it will take the name Danielle. If that's where to take place, I know the GFS model is actually a little bit further off to the west here, and has some set a little bit of low pressure system back towards the New Orleans area by the time we get into Friday. Here's your overall setup. So we've got copious amounts of potential rain in this area of 2 to 3 inch per hour rainfall rate. So these typically are little slow movers. Obviously, the longer it's able to stay over the open waters of the Gulf, the more time it's going to have to be able to get its act together. If it's going to be able to land, less likely it will become a tropical storm or not. But it doesn't really matter, because this whole area will be inundated with very heavy rain. So I would actually say from New Orleans basically to Mobile, to Pensacola, all the way to Destin, you're kind of in that bullseye of seeing the most highest compact of rain. And this will fishtail and shift off into the up north, shift northeast, and going to be impacting portions of Georgia into the Carolinas as we get into this weekend. And there's your GFS guidance a little bit further off to the west, like I mentioned, has that kind of the bullseye, really setting up shop over portions of New Orleans. But either way, this combination of this area will be on high alert of copious amounts of rain. We're talking even possible double-digit totals in this neck of the woods is definitely not out of the question, especially a compounding effect. So over the course of the week, with the highest rain amounts from Thursday, Friday, going into Saturday time frame before it actually shifts off further off into the Carolinas time area. But overall, for the next 7 days, here's your more or less temperature anomalies. The only cool spot in town is where those lingering fronts will be along the southeast coast. Of course, where you got a lot of clouds, you got a lot of rain this time of year. We're in basically the middle of summer, right? So that's the only way you can actually get probably cooler than normal temperatures. It's been really nice up here into the Northeast. We've had a few warm-ups here and there, but overall, the Northeast has been actually really nice, where basically Texas, for the midsection of the country, you're rapidly going to be warming up, and it should be fairly nice off here into the Pacific Northwest as well. So here's your overall rain potential over the next week, right? So we got sporadic systems, right? We have that system this today in parts of Chicago and parts of Indiana, going into portions of, say, around the Detroit area. But after that, with that behind that cold front, there's really not much instability back behind it. Really, the main systems this week is these combination of fronts, and of course that secondary front. Once these actually stall out of the Gulf of Mexico, there's your setup from basically Louisiana to the Florida Panhandle with the highest rain amounts, and some of these could be some double-digit totals. Is definitely not out of the question as the elongation of along the southeast. But other than that, we just kind of have sporadic activity. Obviously nothing much under that deep high pressure over the course of the next week, and then we still have that monsoonal flow, and then really nice weather up there into the Pacific Northwest. But next week, that high pressure really starts to dominate and comes back with a vengeance. So we're not anywhere near done with summer whatsoever. In fact, probably some of the hottest temperatures we've seen, basically more or less on a widespread basis, setting up for next week, as this ridge of high pressure really not only expands, but it intensifies over the midsection of the country, heads well north, actually all the way up into Canada, and this will eventually spread eastward over the course of time by the time we get into late next week. So yeah, it's been really nice in the Northeast, but overall, it won't be until probably 7 or 10 days from now. But you will be warming up rapidly in a big way with that ridge of high pressure. So by the time we get into, say, the 21st time frame, about 10 days from now, we'll have widespread temperature anomalies. And of course, this is the halfway point of summer technically, or at least getting there almost, with your average high temperatures almost at their peak, right? So when you start to see 10 to 15 upwards to 20 degrees above average in the midway of summer, that's some intense heat. Well, I don't need to tell you, that's going to be hot, and not just in Texas and Oklahoma where they've been seeing it lately. It's going to be over the central U.S. It's going to be over the plains, all the way up north. It's going to creep into the essentially into Canada, through the Ohio Valley, all the way up in the Northeast as well. So you're going to be under the gun to seeing those wider spread heat wave as we get deeper into next week. And there's the overall climate prediction center model kind of implying that over the heartland of the country, good chunk of heat dome that's really going to be building, obviously the hottest temperatures we've seen so far this season. But out here off the West Coast, it's going to be average to, if not slightly below average. So that's going to be the cool spot in town, with the warm up shifting into the midsection of the country and shifting off into the eastern part of the U.S. And then, yeah, there's your overall precipitation. Of course, underneath that ridge of high pressure, that sinking air, all that subsidence, that's going to cut off any storms you've been seeing of late, and then replace it with all that sinking air. So really the only precipitation for the following week, next week, will be right along the coast, where they've got these fronts that will be lingering, and then they have warm waters to work with out into the open waters of the Atlantic and over here with the monsoonal flow. But other than that, where the ridges of high pressure will be, that's where you'll be the driest, obviously, going forward into next week. So overall, for the next 2 weeks on the North American view, we've got above average rains in Alaska. It's going to be really nice in the Pacific Northwest, with average to below average temperatures out there, and really not much rain to speak of. Of course, right in the central part of the U.S. and the midsection of the country and the upper Midwest, you're going to be seeing a lot of that sinking air with that high pressure moving in. So overall, for the next 2 weeks, we've got below average precipitation coming your way, and really the only game in town is these lingering fronts here. So that's where you're going to be seeing the bullseye, with these lingering fronts around the southeast. So you should be well above average as far as precipitation goes in a good chunk of the southeast, with the monsoonal flow really continuing. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for staying with me. I won't be probably doing too many updates on this channel. I'll be posting some pictures, posting on the community page. I won't be doing a video. I've got an epic trip over the next 2 weeks with my family, so I'll be enjoying the time out there. So I appreciate you guys staying with me, and I'll definitely be back. And it's 15 days, guys. I know it's a long time. It's our longest trip we've ever been in our lives. I'm looking forward to it. We're heading to the airport, so we're out of here. Y'all have fun, and I'll be sharing some pictures along the way. So I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you in the next video.